Everybody watching this presentation right now is connected to the internet. And if you're connected to the internet, either at home or via your smartphone or other connected device, it's likely that you spend a fair bit of time online. But despite our familiarity with the internet, considering the enormous influence it has on the modern world, how many of us are actually aware of its origins? The ability to share information is nothing new. Arguably, the punch cards used in 18th century English weaving looms, intended to define a specific pattern of weave, could be regarded as network information sharing, since one card could be manually transferred to other machines to produce the same weave. But admittedly, that is a broad definition. By the 1950s, intranets, closed networks within a specific location like universities and military installations, could send large amounts of data across a network, but they were restricted to point-to-point communication to other computers, to which they were directly connected over a hardwired system. In essence, if not in scale, there was very little difference between that and the telegraph systems used a century before. Data could be transferred to other outside operators, but the system was slow and insecure, relying exclusively on a point A to point B method of communication. Simply put, only one computer at point A could communicate with only one computer at point B at any one time, and with early data transfer rates being considerably slower than those of today, the network could be tied up for a substantial amount of time. In 1959, Oxford University's Professor of Computation, Christopher Strachey, filed a patent application for time sharing, a protocol that would allow several computers to interact and share data with each other at the same time. But the quantum leap came about in 1962, when a computer scientist from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Joseph Carl Robert Licklider, developed an idea for a global computer network, which he rather excitingly named the Intergalactic Computer Network. He later shared his idea with colleagues at the United States Department of Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. Work undertaken by UCLA professor Leonard Kleinrock on queuing theory, a mathematical theory used when making business decisions about the resources needed to provide a service, combined with work undertaken by packet switching theory pioneers Thomas Merrill and Lawrence Roberts, began to pave the way to the world's first wide-area computer network. The success of this network was entirely reliant on the work of Merrill and Roberts and the development of that packet switching technology. Simplistically, packet switching is a method of transmitting data, whereby that data is broken into a number of individual parts or packets, each of which is sent independently over whatever route is optimum at the time each packet is sent. For example, imagine you send an email 2 megabytes in size and you want to send this file to somebody on another network. When you send the file, it isn't sent as a single document. It is broken up into lots of small data packets, each of 512 bytes in size. Each packet is assigned a header. This is information that contains the network IP address of its intended recipient and also details of the IP address from which it was sent. The header also gives each packet a number and records how many packets the data was divided into. Now consider billions of computers, all connected together in a huge web or net. There isn't just one way to get from one computer to another. There are many different routes which can be taken. The packets leave your computer and are sent into the network. Each packet heads off in a different direction, but always taking the least busy path at that instant. Your internet router works out which is the next fastest connection and sends each packet along that route. During its journey, each individual packet will travel through many routers, possibly in many countries, but as this is all happening at close to the speed of light, each packet reaches its destination, is reassembled, and ready to view almost instantly. Prior to this, data would need to be sent in a linear fashion, either along individual hardwired telephone lines, across shortwave VHF transmissions, or even dumped wholesale onto huge rolls of magnetic tape and physically transferred to the receiving location. The modern internet simply could not function using this system, as each computer on Earth would need to be connected to every other computer directly, and considering that by the end of 2019 there were an estimated 5.4 billion internet-connected devices on Earth, there would need to be 2.8 sextillion individual connections direct to each other. Using the packet method, billions of computers can communicate with billions of others all at the same time. So it was at 10:30 p.m. on October the 29th, 1969, a student of Leonard Kleinrock's, Charlie Klein, sent the world's first internet message from the UCLA Engineering Department to the Stanford Research Institute's host computer. The 5-character message, log in, managed to crash the system after just the first 2 letters, but an hour later they repeated the task and were successful. The fledgling internet was born. It was only 2 years later, in 1971, the computer engineer Ray Tomlinson established a method of internet communication that is so ubiquitous today, most couldn't imagine life without it. He sent the world's first email. Working for Bolt, Beranek and Newman, Tomlinson had been fooling around with 2 programs called SND-MSG and ReadMail, which allowed users to leave messages for one another on the same machine. He applied the idea behind these programs to a 3rd program, which allowed users to send and receive files between the computers. The combined technology allowed people to send and receive files that could be appended between different machines. Though despite his groundbreaking success with email, Tomlinson is better known for introducing the @ sign as the locator in email addresses. The problem was that different computer networks were limited to webs that operated on the same coding protocols. What was needed was a means by which each web could communicate with another unrelated web on a different system. This was addressed in 1973 by Robert Elliott Kahn. It was while Kahn was working on the Satellite Packet Project that enabled data to be reintegrated without errors that he developed the idea for what would become TCP, the Transmission Control Protocol, which would eventually go on to replace the Network Control Protocol used by the ARPANET system. The subject of its development is vast and complex and would need a dedicated presentation to detail its development, but essentially it created the means for the first internet gateways whereby small subsections of the whole network would be able to talk to each other through a specialized computer that only forwarded the individual packets of information along the route of least congestion. Today, these are referred to as routers, and their principal value lies in their ability to choose which route to send a packet of information along and to guarantee its delivery to a specific destination, fully integrated and without error. This means that even if a section of the network becomes congested, or even if large sections are somehow disabled, the router will still be able to find an open highway upon which to send the information. So, wherever you have one in the home, the office, or if you access one remotely via a smart device, it is this single specialized computer, the router, that allows you to connect to other computers anywhere on the planet. It was also during the 1970s that computer scientist Robert Metcalfe became a founding father of the modern internet. It was during his tenure at Xerox that he read a paper detailing the Aloha network, then in use at the University of Hawaii, and the many and various glitches they were encountering. After studying the system, Metcalfe identified and removed many of the bugs in that system. It was this work that gained him his PhD. Building on the work he undertook on the Aloha system, he submitted a paper detailing plans for an Ethernet method. Essentially, it would replace the slow and lossy telephone wires then in use for data transfer with coaxial cable. These shielded cables would allow the transmission of data in values of megabytes per second rather than the current kilobytes, therefore vastly speeding up the rate of transmission across any one given network. Metcalfe and his Ethernet collaborator Dave Boggs disagree on the date of origin for Ethernet. Metcalfe cites May of 1973, the date he formulated the schematic for the system. Boggs cites November 1973, the date the system was first shown to actually work. But regardless of their disagreement, Ethernet still remains a standard today for the high-speed transmission of data to and from individual nodes within a network. But it wasn't until 1979 that two computer science graduate students at Duke University, Jim Ellis and Tom Truscott, designed a system to allow easy distribution of data along telephone lines, thus allowing the first public access to the growing internetwork system. They developed a system to allow the transfer of news and messages between academics on university campuses using the Unix to Unix copy connection with the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And as Chapel Hill was using the ARPANET system, they could thereby access information along the whole network. And the Usenet system, as it became known, rapidly expanded. It allowed anyone with access to a computer and a phone line to access that network. It was on the Usenet system that in 1991 the creation of the World Wide Web was announced. Prior to 1991, accessing any forum, news network, or indeed any other internet data was a complicated system. It was necessary to know exactly where the required information was held, and a complex system of commands needed to be entered in order to take you directly to where you needed to be. That was until a then unknown British software engineer, Mike Berners-Lee, working at the CERN facility in Geneva, took the hypertext system, developed by Ted Nelson in the mid-1960s, integrated it with the established transfer control protocol code, and in less than a year, his vision went from a basic proposal to the system that allows anyone, anywhere, to access any website instantly. This pivotal development in internet searching could have made Berners-Lee one of the wealthiest men on the planet, but in the true spirit of freedom of information, he open-sourced the protocols to allow anyone to use them. Today, the internet is fully integrated into most people's lives, so much so that whole cultures have emerged that would never have been possible without it. Sitting at home playing computer video games on a single console with a friend has given way to global online gaming communities where millions of gamers can experience fully immersive live gameplay 24 hours a day against people from all across the globe. People who in pre-internet days would never possibly have met have formed successful real-life relationships after meeting online. Students in the remotest locations can access information allowing them to self-educate and, better still, consult with teachers wherever they are based. In these days of lockdown, we can still keep in touch with friends and family wherever they are, and doctors can relay life-saving instructions to people in locations where no doctors are resident. But there is a dark side to the ease with which information can be accessed and disseminated across the internet. Ludicrous theories like flat Earth and New World Order conspiracies and people's belief in them have increased. Conspiracy forums, built on the wiki system, which allows all users to access and contribute to the content, often bar anyone with an opposing opinion, so insulating those who are immersed in the delusion against the common sense of more tempered minds. The less questioning thus becoming ever more deeply engaged within the numerous fantasies discussed there. And although perhaps beyond the scope of this presentation, it has given rise to discussion of internet freedoms in the sharing of data. Video and image content that should be open for everyone is often restricted, having been claimed and copywritten by third-party organizations like Getty Images and Alamy, who demand money for other people's work. But there is seldom progress without pain. And for the most part, the internet is a great achievement of human endeavour, and it will continue to develop. At this time, the internet as we know it is almost 20 years old. No doubt, over the next 20 years, it will suffer more pain of progress.